Anthropic to resellers, stop selling access to Claude. LibreOffice developer claims Microsoft banned his account without warning. Ontario cancels their $100 million Starlink deal. Wi-Fi signals can now monitor you in your home. And Canada makes a huge announcement in wind power off the coast of Nova Scotia. Welcome to #Trending. I'm your host, Jim Love. Let's get into it. Anthropic has a message for enterprising developers: stop reselling Claude. In a blog post this week, the AI company behind the Claude family of models said it's cracking down on third-party services that resell access to its chatbot, often using free-tier accounts. Some were charging for convenience, while others sold access as if they were the provider. Anthropic says this violates its terms of service, which prohibit reselling, reverse engineering, or impersonating the Claude API. It's already suspended multiple accounts and says enforcement will continue. To curb the abuse, the company has also introduced new usage limits. These include stricter rate caps for free users and technical changes to detect unusual access patterns, particularly from automated or bulk querying services. Claude 3.5 Sonnet, the company's top model, is free for individuals on Claude AI. Its strong performance and coding tasks may be fueling this surge in demand, but Anthropic says resale is off limits, and it's evaluating how to license access properly in the future. A longtime LibreOffice developer, the open source product that I guess competes with Microsoft Office, says that Microsoft banned his personal account without warning and then rejected his appeal without explanation. In a blog post, developer Andreas Heinlein claims that he lost access to his personal Microsoft account, which he used for everything from GitHub to Azure. He said he received a notice that the account had violated Microsoft's terms of use, but the company didn't specify what the violation was. Heinlein says he tried to appeal, but that was also denied automatically. Microsoft allegedly provided no contact option to escalate the issue or request further clarification. At the time of the ban, he said he was using the account to test LibreOffice builds on Windows. He stressed that he had not used the account for anything suspicious or abusive. Now, this incident has raised concerns among open-source developers who rely on Microsoft services. Heinlein says that without any transparency or way to appeal, developers could be locked out of key services with no recourse. Microsoft has not yet commented publicly on the claim. The Ontario government has canceled a $100 million contract with SpaceX's Starlink just months after signing it to expand broadband to isolated northern communities. The deal, originally announced in February, was aimed at bringing high-speed satellite internet to underserved communities in the far north. Critics of the Ontario decision questioned both the original rush into the contract and the cost. $100 million to serve 15,000 people seemed excessive. Other Canadian suppliers protested they could do it at a far lower cost. Some observers suggested the original deal was politically motivated, a bid to curry favor with the U.S. administration during a period when Elon Musk still held sway in Washington. But with U.S.-Canada relationships strained over tariff threats, Premier Ford angrily threatened to rip up the deal at one point. Then he quietly backed down on that threat when relations seemed to improve. But after the U.S. again threatened devastating tariffs, particularly to Ontario's automotive sector, and in light of Elon Musk's fall from grace, the cancellation was on again. The Ford government had apparently even drafted legislation earlier this year to back out of the agreement, insulating themselves from any legal action. But it appears that cooler heads prevailed when the government discovered that a number of other northern services, particularly in healthcare, and a huge portion of the rural population had grown dependent on Starlink services. So the government apparently negotiated a formal end to the contract. No announcement was made, and the government has refused to disclose how much the cancellation will cost the taxpayers. This move has drawn predictable criticism, both for the wasted cost, but in particular, there are, for example, the 15,000 people who are now in limbo, including Indigenous communities that the province is desperately trying to build better relationships with to support the goal of mining development, which requires Indigenous support. But Ontario says it's shifting its strategy, saying it now prefers more fiber-based solutions. That may be a nod to the Canadian firms who had originally protested the deal. But critics note that building fiber in remote regions, especially in the terrain of Northern Ontario, is costly and slow, and that canceling a working satellite deal could delay progress on rural connectivity. As far as satellites go, any hope for a Canadian satellite network is years away. But recently, the European Union has invited participation in IRIS-2, a sovereign broadband satellite network designed to reduce dependence on providers like Starlink and Amazon's Kuiper. Is the timing of these two announcements coincidental? I guess we'll find out. A new technology called Wi-Fi-ID may allow devices to recognize and track people using only the way their bodies disrupt wireless signals. No phone, no wearable, no login required. Researchers at the University of California, San Diego, demonstrated the system, which works by analyzing how a person's body shape and movement alter ambient Wi-Fi signals in a space. The system then creates a unique signature, similar to a biometric fingerprint, that can identify individuals with 95% accuracy after just a few minutes of walking nearby. The tool doesn't require a special sensor on the person being tracked, just a commodity Wi-Fi router and a trained model. The researchers say it could be used to improve smart home devices or enhance security systems. But privacy advocates are sounding the alarm. Unlike face recognition or fingerprint scans, Wi-Fi ID doesn't require consent or even cooperation. Once trained, it can identify someone passively, even if they're not carrying any devices. The researchers say their method is not ready for commercial deployment and would require safeguards before being used in real-world scenarios. But with passive tracking technology improving, the boundaries of what counts as biometric data might be shifting. And finally, Canada has designated its first offshore wind energy areas, both of them off the coast of Nova Scotia, in a move that could dramatically boost the province's already growing clean power supply. The two zones announced Monday by federal and provincial officials are near Goldboro and west of Cape Breton. You can check it out on a map. Together, they could support up to 5 gigawatts of offshore wind in the first stage of the project. Now, that's more than double Nova Scotia's current peak electricity demand, which is about 2.4 gigawatts. And Nova Scotia already produces a substantial share of its power from wind and solar. But this new offshore development could create a massive surplus of clean energy, enough to export to other provinces or power energy-intensive industries like cloud computing, AI data centers. The Canadian federal government plans to auction the first leases by 2025 and has set a national goal of 15 gigawatts of offshore wind capacity by 2035. The designated zones mark the first time Canada has formally mapped out areas for offshore wind, bringing real momentum to a sector long considered full of potential, but slow to materialize. Canada's new Prime Minister, Mark Carney, has made promises to make the country an energy superpower, but critics wondered how he would accommodate green energy in his plan. They might be seeing the first evidence of that strategy unfolding. And that's our show. Love to hear from you, unless you are a recent golfer back from Scotland complaining about windmills. And you can reach me at technewsday.com or .ca using the Contact Us tab. I'm just wondering, wait a minute, Can I get my ChatGPT agent to do that? I'll let you know tomorrow. I'm your host, Jim Love, and no matter which way the wind blows, have a thrilling Thursday.